because that word gets tossed around a lot, and a lot of people sometimes maybe don't understand what it means or what.
Yeah.
You start to feel like without your said drug, your life is not very well. You get sick. So it stops becoming something of pleasure and more something just to feel okay. So these long-time heroin users, they don't use it to get high. They inject every day because they have to do it for they feel like we do as people without an addiction. And that's why addiction is so powerful, because you either use that medication or you go through a painful detox that will last a couple of weeks.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is the definition that has been tossed around that I like is it's a primary chronic relapsing brain disease. And so I think people sometimes think that addiction is just bad choices. Well, sometimes it's bad choices that lead to a chronic relapsing brain disease, but sometimes it's not. You mentioned people getting in a car wreck, for example, and going to the hospital and getting on some type of, medication that the physicians give them, and they can become addicted too. So it's a real problem, and it's really complicated. So I think you're starting now with your research to see some of what it touches. What else does it touch? What other problems does it cause?
Every aspect of your life. I had a friend, a very good friend of mine, who when he was in high school, he broke his leg and playing some sort of sport. Went to the hospital and they gave him a prescription for Oxycontin. And it didn't take it very long, and he was on the pills and buying them legally. He could actually take trips down to Mexico to get them and bring them back over the border himself. And it ended up ruining his marriage. His wife found out, and they tried for a while to get him help, and eventually they had to separate. So addiction can ruin your family. It can cost a lot of money paying for rehab. It can lead to fights and words that never should have been said, and ruin relationships forever. So it's not just about one person, it's about the people surrounding him.
And one of the things we saw was that even if just any old person, if you don't plan on abusing the opioids and you're just using them normally, just like your doctor prescribes them, then even then, 20 to 29% of the people who are prescribed opioids develop chronic misuse and start to have to use them and become addicted. And that's a 20% chance that if you take an opioid, you can become addicted.
Do you think people know those statistics?
I think if they did, a lot less people would be using opioids, because you have your entire life and everything in your life, all your friends, your family, if you have kids, your job, just everything is completely destroyed and completely taken away from you if you become addicted. That's a 20% chance that you'll lose everything if you start taking these pills.
I think the common folk doesn't associate prescription painkillers with heroin or probably these other narcotics. I think they assume that heroin is something dirty and people who live in the slums. Whereas what the prescription narcotics are is actually very similar to heroin. Morphine, heroin is disubmorphine. It's one away.
And one of the things that we see is that people associate pills and the FDA as just this thing that they see the FDA as something that is completely good and not biased, and is completely trying to protect them, when in reality it can be biased, and it is, and it's not doing its best to protect them. I think that's one of the problems we're having.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's people running it. I mean, you're going to have corruption, you're going to have money, and I mean, in every aspect of the government, there's some form of corruption, and power corrupts. That's universal law. And
how many products can I get taxed off that are safe enough to use that'll give me money? That's the main goal.
And I mean, it's a huge money-making business. I mean, it's billions upon billions of dollars, and everyone who's involved with it benefits. And if that continues to be the trend in it, well, then people are going to do bad things to make more money.
Did you all talk about stigma at all associated with the opioid epidemic?
Not a whole lot. We didn't really focus on that.
Did you mention you were a pharmacist? Did I hear that? So, addiction is one of these weird diseases that makes you want to steal things, which sounds crazy, but I mean, think about how many other diseases might have that behavioral effect. There's not many.
Yeah.
And so there's stigma that comes with people that have opioid use disorders or other addictive disorders, meaning that, you know, it's kind of nasty and yucky and people don't want to be around it and it's their problem, not mine, and some of that. So, and it happens everywhere, in doctors' offices and pharmacists and schools and communities. So I was just curious if in your research, if you got into that at all, because it's easy to quote statistics, but behind every one of those statistics is a human being.
Yes.
That are trying to live their life, and this addiction is taken over. And you're right, they're not there for the high a lot of times. They're there not to be sick. They're trying to get medication or whatever they can to not have those withdrawal effects. But it's messy.
Yeah. And there is really big links to things like to addiction and depression. And I feel like that's one of the other things there's a whole lot of stigma around is depression. People think that depression is something that not a whole lot of people have, and it's something that's not a huge problem, but it is, because it links to even worse things like becoming addicted, and it leads to addictive tendencies, and you becoming someone that has to take opioids to feel normal or feel right. And it's something that I think as a society we need to really address that, because it's creating these huge problems where we're not addressing depression, which is a huge thing in our society. And it's something we see in media, something we see online. It's something I see online every day, and it's almost becoming like a normal thing to be depressed. And people who are depressed face challenges like being addicted to all types of things. And I think that's one of the other main causes for this epidemic is people are depressed and start to search for something that'll help them with that, and they find opioids and think that's their miracle and become addicted to it.
To address one of the earlier questions about why the crisis would be considered a crisis, we've seen something in the last decade or so that's not been seen in quite a while, and that's the vulnerability to HIV and AIDS. Due to the fact that so many counties around the country are into this opioid crisis system, has led to around 202 million of our population become vulnerable to exposure to AIDS and HIV. And that's one of the reasons it's considered a crisis.
Well, I'll look things from the other end. Okay, so we've identified that we're in crisis. We've got a problem. I'd like to look at how do we find our way out? What are some of the solutions that have been proposed, whether by government, state, and federal government? We'll start there. Has the federal government done anything? What are some states are doing? And then also anything that the private sector might be working on to try to help deal with the problem. Yes, it's terrible, it's horrible. A lot of reasons cause it, but now we're in it. What are we going to do to get out of it?
Well, for one, we have to shut down the drug cartel getting drugs over the borders, especially from places like the Far East, where they're making all these opioids. Such terrible fentanyl because they're coming down through Mexico and up through the cartel. And we have to shut down that border to keep the illegal drugs from getting out before we can even focus on legal prescriptions.
Well, are you aware of any specific steps that have been taken to do that?
Well, I know right now the DEA is working tirelessly on battling the cartel, especially down in places like El Paso and Albuquerque, New Mexico. And also we have our president who's currently attempting to build a wall.
Okay, has our president done anything else to specifically address the opioid epidemic?
Well,
Other than his tests on the wall, I do not know.
he actually did announce the opioid crisis as a public health emergency, and which makes it so that legislation can be changed easily, and it makes it so that a lot of things around the opioid crisis can be changed to help it. And then he did that in late October of 2017, and then he also continued that and that state lasts for 90 days, which he continued another 90 days after that to help change legislation and help improve that epidemic. But one of the things that didn't change was the amount of funding that went towards that, which was what a lot of people saw as one of the main problems with that, was that he didn't address that we needed to provide a lot more funding towards this epidemic because it's a huge problem. And
should that be coming from the federal government or should it be coming from the states?
Both.
Okay, so what are some individual states doing to address the crisis?
Well, for instance, your very own Kentucky is right now, its state director is working tirelessly, going counties to counties, all the field offices in the USDA, working very hard to combat the crisis, such as, say, pain clinics and meetings, for these addicts to come to.
Are you aware of any collaborative work that the states are doing together? Okay. What about technology? How technology might be helping with the issue?
TV ads, radio ads, spread the word about the dangers of these medications.
You run across a program called MAPS.
Matt, I think I saw something about that, but I didn't read into it.
Okay. Something about it was started in I believe it's Maryland. Nope. Yeah, Michigan. Sorry. But it is passed on to other states that have developed similar programs that are going to link pharmacies so that they can tell maybe when somebody's visiting a number of different doctors to get different prescriptions, to kind of link prescriptions and how many pills a person is able to get. There's also, I don't know if you looked into or found anything about some technology designed to predict what type of people are most likely to become addicted and to follow up with them and take interventions. But in addition to those, I'm just looking for anything else that might be solutions. Looking at the problem itself is sad, it's horrible, but what are we going to do about it? And that's mainly what I was looking at.
And I think that this problem is one that we see throughout history and throughout society. People becoming addicted to things. And I think the only way that you can really address this problem is through society. I mean, it's a big societal problem. Is people want to use drugs, and then people want to abuse them, and people want to get high and do things to put away their problems and not face the reality that they're living in. And I think that's one of the major problems that we have, and that's something that needs to be addressed, even though that's probably one of the hardest ways to change a society is to tell it that it's wrong.
Well, it brings me back to the question we started with. So, Robbie, should I tell you, you're going in for a root canal. You can take Tylenol, you can take Motrin, but I'm not going to give you morphine, I'm not going to give you anything strong. Do we need to be telling each other, you just got to kind of have to suck it up, it's going to hurt for a while?
Yeah, I think that's something that we got to start doing, is pretty much saying this is going to be a rough ride, it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to face the pain pretty much. But it means you're not going to lose everything in your life and suffer through addiction. And I think that we need to really show that the society that the pain and the temporary problems that you face are a lot better than losing everything. And I think society doesn't realize that, and that we as a people and as America, we don't realize that these little problems that we try and bypass and try and skip over, and all the little pains and everything that might seem big in a short run but are really small and insignificant in the long run, are by skipping over those that were causing a lot more pain for us in the future. And
So in a country where we are increasingly legalizing marijuana, do you ever see a day when we outlaw opioids?
With the advance of technology, it could be in the relative future due to the fact that we're finding new ways of how we work the brain every day. So I could foresee in the future some sort of way to hack into the brain, such as turn off the pain receptors for someone who's having overbearing pain. It's a possibility.
And like you said, as technology persists and as medicine persists, it's pretty likely that we're going to find a good alternative to opioids. And one of the things that they've done with opioids, it made it really expensive to use, and it made it a really expensive drug, but they made it so it was non-addictive. But because people who were already addicted to opioids weren't using those, and it wasn't just being prescribed to people who just needed regular pain medication, it didn't really become popular. And I think that's probably something we should focus on, is making it so that people don't get addicted to these opioids in the first place. And then there's also Narcan or whatever, and that can be used to help the people that are already addicted and help them out of their addiction and survive the overdoses. And it's kind of bad because it's just more drugs to help with the drug addiction, but you can't really just force these people to get better. They can't really do it on their own because they're sick and they have an addiction. You can't just walk away from it because you have to do it to feel normal, and no normal person is going to be able to force themselves through that. So you need to be able to help them, and those drugs are able to help them.
So, Dean and Robbie, what role do parents have? And a follow-on, have your parents talked to you about drugs, drug abuse, that kind of thing? So my key question is, well, what about the home, and your parents? Do they have a responsibility?
I think parents have some responsibility, but I think what the studies show and what all the information we've looked at has shown is that a normal person who doesn't plan on becoming addicted or doing anything bad in their life can easily just become addicted just because it's an addictive drug and they get prescribed to it, and they have a genetic likelihood or any other number of reasons that causes them to become addicted. Now, parents do have some role in that and helping people from developing those addictive personalities and preventing them from using other drugs and other things that lead up to opioid abuse. But I think as a direct link, it's not nearly as big as the medical side of it.
I guess where I was going is, do you have a good relation? I'm not asking you to answer this, but the importance of parents knowing, if you were my son, I know you and I can talk to each other, open communication. If I sense something's wrong, hey Robbie, we need to talk. Everything going okay, or that type of thing. That's kind of where I was headed with that question.
Ultimately, a parent can only ever teach a kid certain standards to live by, certain properties that should be held in high esteem, such as self-control, self-discipline, and things like that. And so, at the end of the day, when the kid turns 20-something and goes off to college, it's up to him now. And so the parent has to impart in them the things that they think they'll need to be necessary to survive, and such as enough discipline not to abuse opioids. That's about all they can ever do.
And
Otherwise, it's up to them.
a few months ago, we had someone come to the school and talk about his experience with opioid abuse and how he went to college and started abusing marijuana, and he started smoking a lot and started to develop those bad behaviors, even though he had a good relationship with his parents, and at plain sight he was a good kid. But he started